Universal background checks, red flag laws, prohibiting the sale of bump stocks, banning the sale of automatic weapons. These are things that virtually everyone agrees on. These aren't controversial. This isn't.
Alright, today we're going to be talking about gun control, as you saw in the opening, right? But realistically, we're not going to be talking about gun control so much as we're going to be talking about distractions. And I think that gun control and this whole gun control debate is actually a distraction that is being used to prevent people from talking about the reality on the ground. Like what is really going on? What is really wrong with our society? The canvas that I want to use, or the method that I want to demonstrate this through, is through the incident that happened in the short north of Columbus, Ohio on May the 6th, 2023. What I'm going to do is right behind me, you're going to see video. This video is of officers who were on a foot patrol in the short north moments before they were engaged in combat with multiple suspects in the short north. On this particular night, there were 10 people shot in multiple gun battles, hundreds of rounds fired, including an incident that involved officers. The officers fired 30 to 50 rounds in that gunfight. I'm not sure exactly how many it was. But the footage that you saw in the beginning of this video was actually the mayor in his press conference, where he was supposed to be talking about the violence in the short north that night. And rather than talking about the violence that occurred in the short north, he chose to use that speech as an opportunity to, one, campaign, and two, to blame state and federal lawmakers for not passing gun control measures. What he's doing is he's using gun control as a method to distract you from the chaos that is happening in the short north. The short north district of Columbus, Ohio is the arts and entertainment district. This is where the convention center is, very close to the convention center at least. All the downtown hotels and everything are really close to the short north there. If you're in town for something like a sports festival, like the college basketball tournament that was recently in town, or the Arnold Sports Festival, or any other major convention that happens in Columbus, Ohio, and you leave the convention center, go for a walk and get something to eat, you're going to find yourself in the short north. That's the reason that this area is so important to the city of Columbus. For the last few years, it has devolved into absolute chaos and anarchy, and it's almost like nightly there is violence that has like shootings and homicides occurring. On the night in question, there were 10 people shot, 11 firearms recovered, and hundreds of rounds fired. I think I already stated that before. The mayor comes out and calls for gun control. We'll get into his particular recommendations here in a second, but I just want to take this as an opportunity to give you my stance on gun control and kind of what has been happening to our country over the last couple of years. These gun control advocates will say, look, our society is becoming more and more violent. The people that are violent are getting their hands on firearms. We need to take those firearms away. I would say that the firearm is actually more of a symptom than it is a disease. The disease we have is that people are becoming more lawless and more violent. And it's really kind of exploded over the last 3 years. This explosion in violence has really begun. It started in 2020. The numbers, at least in the city of Columbus, literally May 28, 2020 is the first day of the riots. And then the number of homicides on a month-to-month basis doubled in June and then going forward throughout the rest of the year. In 2021, the number of homicides in Columbus alone doubled what the homicides were in 2019. This is an absolute explosion in violence. The reason that we've seen this explosion in violence was really because of our reaction to what happened in Minneapolis, Minnesota to George Floyd. When that incident happened, our politicians and a lot of people in our society said, you know what, every single police officer is guilty of what happened in Minneapolis. And as a result of that, police officers were under attack across the country. Here in Columbus, Ohio, the officers responded to the riots that occurred, and the mayor's response to the officers taking care of and arresting these rioters was, he's like, hey, you know what? This is actually hurting me politically. The people that are out there rioting are my supporters. He went and ordered the police officers to stop arresting rioters. I actually have a little clip I'm going to play for you right now of a woman that was assaulted and harassed in downtown Columbus. When she got a hold of the police, they told her that they are unable to enforce the law downtown because the mayor told them not to.
Surrounded my car.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Okay?
All the way around.
I'm ready.
I'm gonna tell you the truth. All right, our hands are tied. We're no longer allowed to use a mace. We're no longer allowed to use any kind of force at all. If we do anything and something escalates, we can get fired. Okay, that's why I asked you to back up. And at this time, they're blocking enough to allow me to actually go through that. Because of now, our hands are tied. Can they take the street over? No, they're not allowed.
They're allowed to lay under my car?
No, they're not.
Then he was.
Well,
and then they were like, Chad,
listen, I know you're upset.
what am I supposed to do? Run you over?
I know you're upset, okay? We're upset too. But as of right now, there's nothing I can do about it, okay? Our hands are tied, completely tied. We are told to stand down and we're not allowed to take enforcement action. So just be thankful that your car didn't get damaged, you didn't get hurt. Because I've seen these things go a little bit more sideways than what that was.
So you had police officers being told not to enforce the law. Then there was this huge incentive, at least in the city of Columbus. Officers were already leaving at record numbers due to the political environment and just the fact that they were tired of getting their heads bashed in responding to race riots all of the time. So officers were already retiring at record numbers, and the mayor, in his infinite wisdom, put out an incentive to the top 100 officers of the department to leave early. He then offered an incentive for the entire executive staff to leave early. He hired a chief from within the division and then fired him moments before his 1-year probationary period was over. He called in the Department of Justice to investigate his own department, even though there was no cause for an investigation. The mayor hired outside law firms to investigate the police officers' response to the riots that occurred in downtown Columbus in 2020. Then had a special prosecutor file charges against the officers. Those charges were dismissed in 2 of the cases. The third case never went to trial because the special prosecutor ended up resigning in its shame because this whole process was an absolute joke. The public sees this, and what he's doing is he's eroding respect for the rule of law in his city. That created an environment where now, 3 years later in the short north in Columbus, Ohio, officers are on routine patrol. They're trying to break up fights, and the people have no respect for the police officers. The police officers are breaking up these fights, and these people are continuing to fight. These people do not fear repercussions of their actions. So there's this environment of lawlessness that's going on. There's also, it's probably not the right conversation to get into now, but this overarching feeling of victimhood where people feel like they have been wronged and that they're going to lash back out at society, or that they are now in control and they're going to take back, I don't know. There's a lot going on here, and it's not the guns. If you look at the violence that has escalated over the last 3 years and how there has been such a surge in violence, it's basically increased twofold over the last 2-3 years. You have to ask yourself, has the number of firearms on the street doubled in the last 2 or 3 years? Or is it something else? My answer to you is it is something else. The number of firearms that Americans own, it might have gone up a little bit in the last couple of years, but it didn't go up at the same rate that we're seeing this violence. There has not been a major change to our gun laws in this period of time that has had an effect on this violence. It's something else. So the gun control debate is nothing more than a distraction from reality. If you want to solve the gun violence problem in our country, you need to not look at the guns, you need to look at the people. And I'm dead serious about this. It sounds cliche, but it's not. It's everything that leads up to that shooting that needs to be solved, not the shooting itself. It's something that it makes me laugh especially when I look at my own department, because we've had this tremendous surge in homicides, and the response to that is, well, we need more homicide detectives. We need to solve these homicides. And now the solvability rate, or the case closure rate of homicides in my city has skyrocketed. It's gone through the roof. It's not stopping people from killing each other. You need to prevent the killing, not solve the killing. That's the point. And gun control is a very similar tactic. It's a failed response to a problem that you created. But let's listen to the mayor one more time, give his explanation for what needs to be done about gun violence, his solution, and then I'll tell you furthermore why this is nothing more than a distraction.
We need lawmakers, the state and federal levels, to step up and help us get illegal crime guns off our streets. As the chief said, 11 firearms just at this one incident. If these folks are unable or unwilling to do their part to address this nation's growing gun crisis, then we have a simple request. Get out of our way. Let us lead at the local level to enact basic, common sense gun safety legislation. We know what we need to do. We have done it before. It's incumbent on this country to rise to this moment. All we want to do is keep guns out of the wrong hands, out of the hands of criminals, in order to keep our residents safe. Universal background checks, red flag laws, prohibiting the sale of bump stocks, banning the sale of automatic weapons. These are things that virtually everyone agrees on. These aren't controversial. This isn't constitutional overreach. Simply put, this is what this moment demands.
So there you heard the mayor's distraction from the violence that occurred in downtown Columbus on May the 6th, 2023, where 10 people were shot, 11 firearms were recovered from a scene that was absolute mayhem. His response is, we need universal background checks. This is a distraction and a waste of time. The reason being is because if I own a firearm and I want to give it to somebody or sell it to somebody, I can. There's nothing stopping me from doing what I want to do with my own property. Aside from laws that were created to prevent straw purchases, right? So if I give a weapon to someone who knowingly should not be in possession of a firearm, I can then be charged as a crime. This universal background check idea is a joke. You already need to have a background check to buy a firearm in the United States. You already need a background check to buy a firearm at a gun show in the United States. The thing that you don't need a background check for is if I have a firearm and I want to sell it to a friend of mine, I can do that. That's my property. I'm allowed to do what I want with my property. This is a property right, not a gun right. To go down that road is just a tremendous waste of time for everybody involved. And people like Mayor Andrew Ginther are aware of this, but they don't care because they care more about distracting you from the truth than they do about solving the problem. The next one is red flag laws. Here's the thing about red flag laws. They think that telling someone you're not allowed to have a firearm will prevent them from having a firearm. That doesn't work. I've been a cop for 12 years now. I've worked in a very inner city, very dangerous neighborhood. I can't even begin to tell you the number of people I've arrested with firearms that were prohibited from having a firearm. These are people who have convictions for felonious assault, actually shooting at somebody in the past, drug dealers, rapists, people with actual manslaughter convictions in their record. I arrested a guy one time who did 10 years for manslaughter, and he had a firearm on him. I would say that the majority of people that I find with firearms were actually prohibited from owning a firearm in the first place. The majority of people that are out there doing these shootings and the violence that occurs were already prohibited from having a firearm. They did not purchase this firearm legally. They were not in possession of this firearm legally. Adding a red flag law would not change this. The next thing he said was bump stocks and automatic weapons. We need to ban these things. He said that these are things that virtually everybody agrees on. Remember, we're talking about violence that happened in the short north of Columbus, Ohio. I would like the mayor to show me a shred of evidence that there was a single bump stock or automatic weapon used in the violence that occurred in the short north in Columbus, Ohio. I am willing to bet there was not even a single rifle used in the short north that evening, where 10 people were shot and 11 firearms were recovered. I would also like to take this opportunity to make an offer to the mayor. My offer to you is this. This is my Bushmaster AR-15. I can even probably show you. There you go, in the light. This is a Bushmaster AR-15. I purchased this weapon in 2004, 2005. I can't quite remember. This is my AR-15. It has all of the things that these gun control advocates hate. It has fancy flip-up sights on it. It has a collapsible stock. It has a pistol grip. It has a bayonet notch. It has a flash suppressor. It has all of the things that they think make a firearm more deadly and more dangerous. My offer to you, Andrew Ginther, is if you can show me any evidence, even the slightest shred of evidence, that there was a bump stock or an automatic weapon used in the shooting that occurred in the short north on May the 6th, 2023, I will give you this firearm. I will hand deliver it to your office. Not only will I hand deliver this firearm, but I will also bring you all of my 30-round mags, which I have quite a few. I'll give you all of my 30-round mags, and I will give you the thousands of rounds of ammunition that I have of green tip 5.56 ammunition. The reason I'm willing and able to make this bold offer is because I know, and you know, that there was not a single bump stock, that's a joke, or automatic weapon used in that shooting. What you are doing is you are trying to distract people from the reality on the ground. We all know that banning those things and banning these things, like what I'm holding right here, will not have an effect on the violence that is occurring. All you're trying to do is use this incident that happened in your city due to circumstances largely within your control. You're trying to use that instance as a campaign event because you know that the people who currently support you are not educated voters, and they believe the stuff that you're saying will have an effect. I'm here to tell you and to tell them that if you continue down this path, the only thing that you're going to see is more violence. Stop the distractions. Start doing something real. That's what the people demand. I think that's all I'm going to say today. Thank you for watching. I'll talk to you later.